I'm in the middle of producing a song for a client, a cover of David Bowie's Blue Jean. Ambitious, I know. The thing is, when you're talking about these incredible legacy artists like David Bowie, their music is kind of hallowed ground and it becomes very risky territory to cover one of their songs. But the way I see it is that it's a great track and it's always fun to bring older music to life, especially in the world of modern music production technology, which they didn't have back in the 70s and 80s. One of the really cool parts of Blue Jean, in my opinion, is the backing vocal that carries the choruses. And in some of the live renditions, it even becomes more than a backing vocal, but more like a choir with loads of different vocal layers stacked up together. We decided for this version of the song that we would double down on that idea and create this larger-than-life choral-style harmony stack. We wanted to really embrace that 80s cheese and get a vocal harmony part which sounds so huge and epic that it's almost inappropriate. So with just the raw vocal files by themselves, this is what we have. Oh, and when that blue jean's blue. And we took it to this. So let's talk about how we did this. The first thing is time alignment. To get all of these vocal tracks time aligned, instead of meticulously going through all of the tracks and moving them around and slicing them up, I use Vocaline 6 because it's incredibly easy to use and gets the job done quickly. So we've got 8 different tracks here. 4 of them are doubles, 1 of the melody and 1 of a harmony, and I've panned each of those doubles slightly left and right for more of a stereo spread. We've got a third harmony, which I've called main 3, and then we've got a low octave, a high octave, and a high harmony, which I really had to dig deep for. For a choir vocal section like this, as far as I'm concerned, you can never have enough layers. The more voices, the more layers you have, the bigger the sound will be. Now listen, if I just isolate a couple of the tracks and show you both before and after they were time aligned, you'll see how before it just kind of sounds a little sloppy. You can even see here, these last couple of waveforms just don't line up with each other. So what we do is pull up an instance of Vocaline, sidechain a guide track, which I'm going to use as main L, capture audio, and let it play out and process. Once we do that on all of the tracks in our choir stack, everything will be perfectly aligned and each track will be in sync with each other. Oh, and when that blue jean's blue. Oh, and when that blue jean's blue. Oh, and when that blue jean's blue. It doesn't sound bad before, but at least to my ear, when it's time aligned, it just sounds that much more slick and high production value. But one thing that I think is important to acknowledge is that when you're doing time alignment on a choir section or a gang vocal or anything like this where you have a lot of different voices doing the same thing, you don't always want it to be perfectly aligned. We want to retain a level of humanness of a group of people all standing in a hall singing together. And for that to sound real, even with a really good performance, there's going to be micro differences between singers where one vocalist maybe starts a word or finishes a word at a slightly different time, a few milliseconds apart. So this doesn't mean that we should forego time alignment, but what it means is that to retain the humanness, what we want to do is we want to go into the Vocaline plugin and just adjust the tightness on all of these new tracks, dialing it back just a few milliseconds, because those few milliseconds are all you need for the humanness to come back. It will still sound tight, but not so tight that it sounds synthetic or like a machine. So after we've time aligned the tracks, we're not going to do anything else to each of the individual tracks. That's it. For a choral vocal stack like this, it's silly to process every track individually. It would take ages and it would take up so much CPU to put plugins on every single track individually. And as well as that, even if we had unlimited CPU, it wouldn't sound anywhere near as cohesive as what we're going to do, which is send all of the tracks into a summing stack. And all of the processing we're going to do is going to be on this stereo summing track. So literally all we want from these initial vocal tracks is to ensure that they're time aligned and then to get the levels balanced and to do some basic panning if necessary. So over to our summing stack, the first thing I want to do is load up a preamp because these vocal tracks were actually recorded through the Unison preamps that come with my Universal Audio Apollo interface. And they're great, like they're very neutral and clean sounding, but they don't have the analog color that you get from something like a Neve 1073 or an SSL channel strip. So So instead of loading up CPU heavy plugins on every track individually, like I've said, we're going to pull up an SSL channel strip, and that's just going to give the whole vocal section a little bit more color. I haven't really done anything here except increase the gain ever so slightly and reduce the output to compensate. This first thing we're doing isn't to do anything particularly drastic, it's just to give the section a bit more of that SSL color. Next up, we're going to do some subtractive EQ to get the stack into a little bit of better shape. All I'm going to be doing here is high passing to get rid of the low frequencies and creating a notch in the low mids where it sounds a little nasty. Let's hear what I mean. With 8 vocal tracks, the low mid energy is really going to build up, and I don't want to be wrestling with that in the mix. So creating a cut at a point that it sounds most muddy and nasty makes the whole thing just sound that much cleaner, and it will work much better later on. Oh, the whole human race. Oh, the whole human race. Low mid energy isn't the only thing that builds up in a vocal stack though. Similarly to lead vocals, the S's are going to be too much, so we need to get a de-esser involved and clean up some of these S's. Let's listen to the difference that it makes with and without. Oh, somebody send me. Oh, somebody send me. Okay, now we're on to compression. And for compression, I'm actually going to use a room reverb plugin called Sound City by Universal Audio. And the cool thing with this plugin is we're actually going to kind of be doing 2 things in one, because it's both a room plugin, but it also has a really cool compressor, which we'll talk about in a moment. Sound City has so many cool presets which give you good start points, but the important thing to remember when we're doing something like this is that we're not setting it up to behave like a reverb. So it's important that whether you're creating a sound from scratch or using one of their presets, you need to make sure that it's set to remic at the top here instead of reverb. For this, I started with background Vox Air, and what I like about this preset is that it creates more of a stereo spread right off the bat because the room microphones are set quite wide. And the cool thing is that within the plugin's interface, you can just drag the microphone stands to widen or narrow them to taste. It's completely up to you what sound you create. You get to create your own room sound. So what I've done is I've muted the close mic and I've made both sets of room mics quite wide to increase the stereo image and get this choir to exist around the lead vocal so that when the song's finished and the lead vocal's in the mix, they're not competing for space. The next thing we're going to be doing is adding some light compression. But for this, as I said before, we're not leaving Sound City. We're going to stay in this interface because you'll see in the effects section, it's got a dynamic section with a few different modes. And as a trick, if you really want to enhance background vocals, the mode you want to choose is encode because it's just so smooth sounding and just kind of breathes life into a choir stack like this. We're not going to squash it too much, but we're just going to shave off a few dB just to control it a little. And if you listen, you'll hear just how much it enhances the harmonic detail, but at the same time makes everything wider and bigger. Oh, the whole human race. Oh, the whole human race. Now, next up, we're going to have some fun. I want to add some reverb and other effects to create a larger than life sound. And for this, we're going to use a great little plugin called Omnivox, which has both a voices section and an effects section. So it's a really handy all-in-one plugin for things like this. First things first, the reverb is going to be pulled up to around 40%, which saves me from setting up a reverb send later and blending it in parallel, which is usually what I would do. But for this, I want the choir to have its own reverb sound, and I'm not going to use that reverb for any other part of the song. Now for voices, you can keep it right down to 0 if you want, but the more you add, you drag this slider, the larger the whole thing will sound. Bear in mind, we're starting with 8 tracks, and this slider compounds it drastically. Quite often in life, less is more, but I don't feel like being restrained with this, so I'm going to lift this right up to the maximum and increase the width ever so slightly to about 140, and let's have a listen. Oh, the whole human race. Notice how much further back it sounds in the soundscape when we've got Omnivox engaged, which you may or may not like in isolation, but when it's in the context of the mix, which we'll hear in a second, it works a lot better with it engaged. Because remember, this is not a lead vocal. We don't want this choir right at the front. We want it further back. We want the ear to perceive it as further back in the room. And the final thing we're going to do is just add a little saturation using U78 by Audified. Nothing crazy, it just adds a little warmth and gives it some analog color. We don't really need low-end energy and even high-end energy for choir parts like this, because there's enough low-end energy from things like the kick drum, the bass, and the instrumentation in a mix like this. And adding more with a choir stack is only going to threaten to muddy up the mix, not improve it. So we're going to high pass slightly. And likewise, we're also going to cut some of the highs with a low pass filter at around 10K, because we don't need any sizzle and sparkle of those high frequencies from a choir. The sparkle is going to come from synths, pads, the zing of the guitar strings, and from the lead vocal once it's in. You may remember with EQing I did earlier, we already applied low cuts and high cuts, and the reason for this is placement. When you want something further back in the mix, high-end energy is going to fall off a bit quicker, and that further back in the room reverby energy is going to be more concentrated in the mids and low mids. So we don't really need much above 10K, or to be honest, even 5K, which is one of the reasons a lot of engineers suggest that you EQ your reverbs and roll off everything above 5 or 6K. Notice one more thing with the saturation, how I've turned the output down, and that's because saturation plugins, when driven a little, will increase the output volume. And you can check that on your faders in your mix window. The thing is, it's very easy to pull up a saturation plugin and go, oh, that sounds so cool, it sounds so much better. But you got to check yourself. Is it the effect of the saturation that your ears are responding to, or do you just like it because it got louder? Because remember, the human ear perceives loudness as better. So you've always got to check that when you apply any new effect, not just saturation, that the amplitude of your fader stays the same, and that it is in fact the new effect that you like, not just the fact that it's louder. Okay, so now let's hear the whole thing, firstly without any processing on the choir stack, and then with all of the processing, just so that we can see how transformational these steps have been. One thing worth mentioning is that it can take quite a lot of time to record all of the individual vocal files for a harmony stack like this. But if you don't have all these different voices and you've only got one track, one take, you can use Revoice Pro to create some doubles and even some different vocal harmonies and octaves to get the same effect as if you'd recorded 20 different takes. So for humanness and for that perfect imperfection, it's probably a good idea to take some time to record all the different parts. But if you only have one vocal track to be working with, Revoice Pro really gives you options to create this effect without getting a singer back in the studio or without pulling up the microphone yourself.